Welcome to the Luminary stage. I'm Dr. Ami Bhatt, Chief Innovation Officer at the American College of Cardiology and Chair of the FDA's Digital Health Advisory Committee. I'm excited to be here today, and we're going to talk about biology meets intelligence, the next frontier in medicine. Now that's the title, but really what we're going to do is the following. When we think about AI and we think about biology, we realize what the promise is. But we also realize that there are kind of large stopgaps along the way. We realize that not everybody necessarily is doing it the right way, and perhaps people are either doing it too fast or too slow to be successful. And so we're going to kind of go through all of that. We'll start with introductions of the panel, so maybe I'll ask each of you to tell them who you are, what you do and why you're here, and then I want you to tell them the one thing about AI that they're getting wrong. I can start with you.
Yeah, so my name is Andreas Toljas. I'm a professor at Stanford University, and I work on the interface of neuroscience and AI. We try and use AI to build foundational models of the brain and digital twins of the brain to understand the science of intelligence, what is the algorithms, the mechanism of intelligence that is generated by our brain, by brain activity. And then by building these models and understanding how they work, we want to then instill these mechanisms to AI systems so they are more aligned to human brains. So we think they'll be more intelligent, more interpretable, safer by design. And also these kind of models, we can also use them for biomedical applications.
Wonderful. All right.
Hello, I'm Colin Hill. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Atia. We are an AI digital twin-driven biotech company that creates these computer models from human multi-omic data that enables us to discover completely new drugs for neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and Huntington's disease, and hard-to-treat cancers like pancreatic cancer and glioblastoma, in partnership with major pharma companies and biotech companies. We are considered one of the pioneers in precision medicine and AI, and I also sit on some outside boards of other biotech and pharma companies. The one thing I do believe people get wrong in AI when they think about biomedicine is they don't understand the deep need for causality. Causal AI as the basis to understand mechanisms of the system, a system in which we are lucky if we know 5% of the circuitry of today, and with 95% of that circuitry hidden, this is at the heart of why drug discovery and development has been so difficult. And it's not large language models and just internet-related data exhaust that will come close to solving the problem.
I love that. I love that. All right.
Hi, my name is Serge. I am a researcher at Harvard Medical School. I also work in clinical medicine at Boston Children's Hospital, which is the largest pediatric research hospital in the world, but also one of the largest in the US. So most of the problems I focus on are to do with all sorts of pediatric issues. So this is a very specific part of medicine because the data, as children grow up, really is different to adults. I work on a range of different kind of AI problems, starting from the brain to tumors of the liver to Crohn's colitis disease. And I typically try to develop models that help us to better answer the questions, specifically for radiologists, neurologists, endocrinologists. So vision language models is what I do a lot of, and synthetic data generation. So whenever there is not enough data, how do we deal with that problem? How do we have this nuanced understanding of diagnostics? Things that people get. I was talking to Gary Marcus yesterday, who was here, and I was surprised in our conversation. There isn't that many CPT codes, which is the code that insurance companies use to bill, issued for modern vision AI systems. We're still very, very far away. I think many people don't realize how like at what baby stage we're still,
Okay. All right. And finally.
So my name is Johan Julin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mavatar. Mavatar stands for Medical Avatars, and that's exactly what we do. So we build digital copies of human and diseases. And by doing that, we can test medical drugs on the digital copies before we give the real drug to the real patient. And the same technology we're also using for drug development. So I think we have a lot of things in common here. And you asked the final question there. So what would I like to bring up? I think it's very important to mention that I've been working with my company for 7 years, and it's based on 20 years of research from Karolinska. And when I started to develop my algorithms, it's the same algorithms that I did then as I'm doing now. And then ChatGPT came, and suddenly we became an AI company. And then suddenly people were looking to us with different eyes, and also from a regulatory perspective. So that's something that I would like to bring up.
I love that. All right, let's start there actually for a second. We're talking about AI regulation. We just came from a conversation actually with wearables companies and digital health, a little bit different. And they're very excited. 2 weeks ago, the FDA kind of said, hey, go let people take care of their own health, essentially. I'm paraphrasing, and I'm not speaking for the US government. What has it been like on this journey in the past few years for regulation of AI? Has it touched you yet? Has it not touched you? I hear that the payment codes aren't there. Fair, they're not there for a lot of things. But where is regulation coming in? Or is the field just too early to even be at the stage where that level of clinical regulation is relevant? Maybe we'll start with you first.
Yes, thank you. So I think, okay, so the expectation are sky high on AI in healthcare. We all know that. But the willingness to change the rules and regulations are not there. And the people that take care of the rule and regulation and don't always see the vision or the potential with the AI solutions that the entrepreneurs and companies are coming up with. But I also think it's one important thing is the mindset where you are at as a person. So I might ask the audience here. So how many in this room would be willing to share your DNA with a pharma company? Just like that. Raise your hand.
2 out of 20?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would rephrase that question. So how many of you would be willing to share your DNA if you were severely sick and there is a chance that they can treat you? Would you do that?
There it is. There it is.
I think almost everyone would like to do that. There are exceptions. I was at a meeting in Sweden where the owner was scientists and everyone was raising their hand at the first question. So it depends on who you are also. So
I love that thought. Colin, let's turn to you for a second. I want to talk about causality because you mentioned it.
Please.
And when we think about designing new drugs, we want to understand where they come from, where they're working. And we're going to get a little bit to the business model later before we're done. But as we're designing that, we've been told recently, hey, AI is not always explainable. There are times that AI is seeing patterns and it knows something, and you see from the outcomes that it's right. But we as doctors, right, me as a practicing cardiologist, I can't see that. Can you just help explain the difference between explainability and causality when you're speaking?
Yes. So science is based on mechanism. Mechanism is causality. I love that AI is having its golden moment, but of course there's many different kinds of AI. Right? AI is ultimately going to have its biggest impact when it gets to understanding complex systems. And biology and human biology and disease is one of the ultimate complex systems, but we need a very different kind of AI to understand it. Deep learning and large language models are not the right framework to extract that causality, to reverse engineer the hidden circuitry, the interactions between genetic variation, mRNA, proteins, and clinical outcomes. So causal AI, or the more formal name is Bayesian network inference, when you combine that with global optimization and computational physics techniques, you can get to something much more powerful. And when you start to learn the underlying mechanics of the system that created the data, which is answering a very different question than what's the pattern, right, you now have the power to predict the result of many different interventions, all the different interventions to get to a deep understanding of disease of that system, which is also explainable. It's a lot safer and something that regulators will very much buy into. So I'm going to make the very bold prediction in 2026, it will be the year that interest in LLMs, especially in scientific fields, will start to will start to ebb,
Yes.
and causal AI and digital twins will become the central theme of AI in our space.
So I love this, and I'll say the third time's the charm, right? So earlier today, we heard from Jan LeCun, and he last year actually was the first time he said generative AI will be dead in 3 years. He said here on our stage. And today, he said the same thing. He said, no, we really can't rely on LLMs to be the way we do complex reasoning. And then Nubar actually talked about thinking about a Bayesian mechanism and understanding and how that's now being published and people understanding. So you're the third in a trio of three excellent thinkers about AI, so I'm excited. I'm going to turn this a little bit to you, though, because I want to talk about when we think about a complex network, right? And now we're saying we can do advanced thinking, right? In your perspective, because you're clinically closer to this, are we there yet? Or is the advance that you're seeing more of pattern recognition that is so advanced that we're calling it intelligence, but we're not yet where Colin wants us to be?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. So just to step back a little bit here. So basically, AI is an artificial neural network that is inspired by the brain. There's neurons that have connections and they're plastic. They change during learning. So in some ways, very similar to the brain. And it's learning, it's copying human intelligence from the behavioral artifacts that we produce, like text, like we make movies, we collect data, and we train these networks. And one of their issues is that they're very good at performing better than us, performing within distribution. Like they learn, for example, this cohort of patients to make predictions radiologically, but now if you change the machine or you change slightly the conditions, they fail, whereas humans are really good. So they are not intelligent, they are definitely intelligent, but they are not as intelligent as us in able to generalize into new situations. And that is the big gap. Now, what we believe is going on is that the brain is also a neural network, but it encodes the world, it has a world model in a very different way, or in different ways, that enables it to generalize in new situations. And we think that is also grounded, that the brain's network is grounded in laws of science. That if we understand those, then we'll be able to also build more mechanistic and interpretable models. So can imagine, let's say, building a robot that is either cooking or doing maybe looking at a patient. And the fact that this robot, if the situation changes a little bit, will not be able to perform the way human would adapt, we think it lies in some qualitatively differences between the representations of the brain of an artificial agent and the real brain. And that's the bridge that we're trying to.
So are our brains causal? Are we performing causal learning?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, our brain is, our behavior is caused by the activity in the brain, and we call this causal inference. And, there are mathematical frameworks like Bayesian inference that can explain partly. But, none of these mathematical theories completely explain the brain. It's very hard. And one of the reasons is it's only in the last 2-3 years that we have technology, the equivalent of omics, but to do it for brain activity, that we can collect this data at scale at the resolution that matters.
So Colin, you're making me laugh with your question, right? So I walk around as a clinician, I always tell people that right now AI does not have enough context, right? Can't do edge cases the way we can, right? This is a little bit of what you're talking about, generalizing this to that. And nuance, the nuance of, in my case, it's clinical delivery, right? And AI supporting clinical delivery. So context, edge cases, nuance. And I'm looking at you, Colin, and I'm thinking, hey, I consider those good things, but actually there may be bad things because maybe it's not causal the way the brain is working. There is context, edge cases, and nuance making me make an assumption, and that's very human, and actually maybe not something that we want to model. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask each of you, let's do just a quick rapid fire for a second. When we are thinking about moving forward now with AI in terms of designing against synthetic models, having a digital twin, not of an entire human, let's say a digital twin chip of a liver, right, or a model of a brain. When you're thinking about that, what is the one thing that you're afraid other people are getting wrong? Notice how I don't say you're getting wrong. What is the one thing you think other people are getting wrong when they are coming into your arena of digital twin or synthesized data? What do they have to watch for?
So for me, actually, this is the problem I'm working on now with the Crohn's case. So it's a disease, inflammation of the bowel. And it's a very complex disease. It basically, people go through many different departments to be diagnosed, and they come back to the hospital, 10, 15 times a year. I think what... Wait, what was the question?
Yeah, no. So
Okay.
the question is, when other people try and synthesize data that we're going to now use, right? Because I
Yes.
love the idea of synthetic data. I don't want to try a med on a patient. Someday we're going to call that inhumane.
Yeah.
What do you mean you didn't try it on a digital twin first, right? But what are people maybe not getting right now?
Okay, I remember what I was going to say. So what we are discovering right now is that a lot of the nuance that happens in the clinic is simply just not recorded. Clinical notes just tell you, okay, what was the diagnosis and maybe some key features that led to this diagnosis. But there's a lot of nuance that's not recorded. And maybe you could record the voice notes, the conversations with the patients, but it's still not enough. There's so much of that learning that happens between doctors. That's why, you do residency for 4 years. They don't just let you, become an attendee straight away, because that is a very nuanced thing. And we simply don't have that data anywhere. So if I wanted to train an LLM, the LLM just doesn't have that data. And so we're kind of trying to answer this, trying to pose the question, how do we learn in this environment? I don't have the answer yet.
All right, so that nuance, that interaction, that gestalt, that is missing a little bit. That perhaps prior experience informing current experience that is not actually dictated there or easily obvious through the data. What else? Other things that make the digital twin ecosystem hard or challenging, or what people are getting wrong? Maybe we'll go down here first.
I think the expectation, that we set up very high expectation on the AI models or the avatars or digital twins. And often they can have high expectations, but I mean, we have doctors, they have bias. AI models will have bias. And I think that many AI models have been proven to diagnose patients better, but they are not always 100% accurate. But they are better than the doctors, so it's about the expectation.
Before we go to Colin, can I ask the audience a quick question? So for all of you out there, picture yourself with your own digital twin right by your side, right? How many of you would say, hey, yeah, anything you're going to give me, test in that digital twin first? Only some people. Okay, what if I told you that digital twin is correct 60% of the time? The other 40% it's wrong. Would you still want me to say there's a 60% likelihood that this is actually a thing that's going to work? No. Okay. But, so depends. Colin, go from depends.
Well, it certainly depends on the disease and your chances of getting cured with standard of care. If you're given a stage 4 pancreatic cancer diagnosis, you would love 60%.
Yeah, gosh, that would be a great number.
Now, in the future, that will change. Yeah. But I think in general, in the context of drug discovery and development, what people get wrong about digital twins is they're not clear on what problem they're solving. It's the hidden circuitry problem. The missing blueprint is the core problem, and therefore one does need to approach it in a molecular way, meaning multi-omic. And oftentimes people use the term digital twin. They don't mean multi-omic, and they also don't mean causal. So therefore, they're producing digital twins that can't predict the outcome of intervention. So that's why we coined the term Gemini digital twins. And to be clear, we coined that before Google. And this view came well before Jan LeCun or Nubar. Nubar's a good friend, but yes, after the fact.
Yeah, I think one thing that in general people may be missing is that if you look at biology, it's a very complex system and it's multi-level. It's not just built out of, you have transcriptomic genetic information, but then these build, especially in the brain, they build networks, they have dynamics, the dynamical system. It's very influenced by a lot of things. So in order to have a digital twin that's going to be helpful when you test it to transfer that result to a real human, it may be that we need to collect multi-level data where we can bridge different levels of analysis, because if you just go, let's say, from genetics to behavior or to cancer, it may be possible, but the system has all these intermediate levels of complexity. And we need to think what is the technology to capture this data. For example, in the brain, That's what we focused. There was the BRAIN initiative that for 10 years it funded to build through the US government, to build NIH, DARPA, ARPA, to build neurotechnology. So we could capture data at what we call the systems level. You know, in biology, we have a lot of scalable technologies at the omics level, but, you know, we lack more technologies at the systems level. And then, of course, we have the behavioral level or the output. You know, your cardiology is arrhythmia, but then the heart is a complex system.
So this is a great point that's being surfaced. I just want to say this again. If you have a heart problem like heart failure, you're backing up fluid, your lungs are affected, right? Your liver is affected. So it is a multi-organ issue. If you are somebody who has neurologic disease, you may also have neurovascular disease. And so again, you have multi-system issue. And the high likelihood is that there are few, although there are some, diseases that are limited to one area. However, many of them are interrelated, and the treatments are. So if you take a cancer and you treat somebody for cancer, the likelihood that you now have immune issues or effects on the heart from the cancer drug actually quite high. And so the systems biology is actually far more complex than even just thinking about the multiomics and thinking about bringing in imaging in addition to genetics and in addition to metabolomics. And so it's really a complex system that these people are working on. I think we are getting relatively close to time, so let us do one more round. And I'd like to talk about the business model of synthetic data a little bit, because this comes up a lot. And the question often becomes, yes, you can find a new molecule that's a new pathway for a new way that something's never been treated. Or you can take a pathway that's pretty well known, and you can either make it more efficacious or safer or more tolerable. I have an opinion. I am not an entrepreneur. I have an opinion as to which one probably gets funded better and gets sold better. And I can say that doctors will be likely to adopt better. How do you struggle with that in your companies and in your work? Doing the Me Too work versus going for the brand new thing, especially when funding is really limited right now?
Everyone is looking at me. Well, we are a growing company right now. But it has been a tough market for sure. But to answer your question, I think we have a business model. First of all, we're not inventing molecules, or we're not inventing drug targets. We describe the biology of human, and we do that by understanding mechanisms. We're learning from one disease to another disease. So if you, for example, have lung cancer, we know that we can learn from cancer elsewhere in the body, like melanoma or somewhere else, but we can also learn from lung diseases, other lung diseases like COVID or asthma. And so we have built networks that interact with each other, because we know that gene signatures is coming back in disease after disease after disease. And that's what we offer to the pharma industry.
So it's almost like I don't want to call it a platform, that makes it sound too simple.
It is a platform.
But it is a platform.
So we distribute our technology via platform, and then we give access depending on your interest. And for the healthcare system, we offer our technology that every time they do a click in our platform, they will have an answer for each patient. So it's like an app, more or less.
Okay. And Colin, you do the thing that he says he doesn't have to do. You create the new molecule. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so our business model is really based on the fact that these Gemini digital twins are become increasingly accurate as we've fed more and more multi-omic patient data in, such that we're able to discover completely new drug targets and validate those in a human setting, not animal models or cell lines. And we're able to simulate drug candidates in these digital twins to discover which patients will respond. So our business models follow that. In one case, we partner with biotech and pharma for the discovery of completely novel drug targets, where we get upfront fees, preclinical and clinical milestone payments and royalties. So we get a little bit of interest in every drug. And we have a number of those partnerships that have been announced publicly, especially in oncology. And then on the other side, when we simulate a drug candidate, in that case, it's more of a fee-for-service, in silico kind of a contract research organization. We are a platform company, but we're really at the center of this ecosystem. Data partners on the one side, biotech and pharma companies on the other, to make the drugs, and we keep on improving and investing in the Gemini digital twins until we get from 60% accuracy to hopefully 80, 90, 95.
And then their hands start going up for their digital twinning.
There-
Yeah,
there
that's
you
right.
go.
Let's end with regulation where we started. Does this make it easier? Do digital twins to synthetic data, in your opinion, make it easier for people to get through phase 1 trials faster to phase 2, get funding there, get clinicians on board, or do we not know yet? Let's just go rapid fire down the road.
Yes, and we even have an initiative in Sweden which we call phase 0 studies, where we do it digital before doing it clinical.
Phase 0 studies.
I don't really
Thoughts?
deal with it, so no comments.
Yeah, I think the regulators, especially the FDA, are very bullish on these type of in silico methods, even using that to replace or reduce animal studies. We're involved with some of that. So we're bullish on its impact, certainly on phase 1 for safety, but it's going to soon have impact in phase 2. And I do think if we're back here 5 to 10 years from now, I think we will start to get to the point where almost every drug candidate is being tested rigorously in silico populations before real trials.
Okay, I'm going to end with you.
Yeah, so I also don't deal with the FDA, but in our field, the brain is a very complex system, and we are basically going for a moonshot in the sense that we're building technology. It's like you build a telescope, and for the first time, you point it to the sky. Yeah. So these are the type of stuff that we're doing. And building these digital twins, it's almost a necessary step to be able to understand it and also develop new treatments at that level.
Perfect. At the end of those 5 years, where are we going to be with AI research in this area? Where are we going to be? This room heard it first, so yeah, let's hear it.
I'm very extremely optimistic. Yes, causality is important. Generalizability also important. Big breakthroughs are important. I think right now we have access to tools where anybody can build, and a doctor could code apps, could try things, could do research in the spare 20 minutes that they have somewhere. I think there's just so much low-hanging fruit when it comes to clinical medicine, to just like being able to optimize the processes around hospitals, because the costs of healthcare shot through the roof because of also administrative costs, that there is a burden associated with all the regulations and all these people that had to be filling in details. We can do these things with LLMs. We don't have to solve causality. I think there's just so many things we can do just to improve patient care, to be able to track that journey from the start to the finish. With this digital twin, digital mind, that just tracks that journey. That just makes them feel comfortable when a doctor cannot come to the room because they only have 10 minutes. They're like 30 minutes late. Well, maybe the digital twin can talk to them, can soothe them. All these things, patient care for me is also about like making them feel good and comfortable, and not like it's a hospital, but an environment where they feel good. Yeah. And I think we can already solve those issues, and that will be massive breakthrough.
I like where you started in this when you talked about doctors vibe coding. I've always wanted to say vibe coding on video. I'm doctors vibe coding. But I think what I'm hearing is, we have the brain as a learning organ. We're learning so much more about it. We have labs, we have AI as learning systems, right? And we're figuring out how those systems learn. And what you're saying is AI is creating a learning environment. All of us are learning so much more because we can interact. I love this. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you to the audience.